Welcome to Automation Hunter, the podcast for entrepreneurs and businesses ready to scale smarter. In this series, Apps, Hacks, and Bounties, your host, Will Christensen, dives into game-changing tools and strategies alongside special guests, sharing insights to boost productivity and solve real business challenges. Ready to innovate? Let's dive in.
Welcome to this episode of Automation Hunter. I'm your host, Will Christensen, and I have Corey Brown from Buffa Brands. Corey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Corey and I met actually through Seller Labs. His team was using the platform, and then we had him on our podcast there, and we got to meet in person. We did a mini podcast episode on monetizing your mental capital. Another great show I'd highly recommend. And I got to thinking about who would make good guests on this podcast. And Corey came to mind immediately. And I was like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this. So on this podcast, we talk about apps, hacks, and bounties. And so what I'd love for you to do is share with me any hacks you've come across, or we're going to start with apps actually. So we go in that order: apps, hacks, and bounties. And the bounties are like, I'm still trying to solve this problem with an app or a hack, and I haven't found one yet. So we create a bounty for the automation hunter to go find. So
okay,
start with apps.
Apps. Okay. Do we have any directions we'd like to start with on the apps?
However, whichever direction.
Apps that I love.
So like for me, one of the apps that I've come across recently that I absolutely freaking love, and unfortunately it's only Windows users. I don't have a Mac version yet. But there is a clipboard called Genie Clipboard. And this sucker will search, like it'll search from the beginning of time. Like it'll take all of my clipboards and I can search through them. It will allow me to trigger things. So like if I copy a Loom link, it'll automatically post that Loom link to Zapier, and like make it just flow through. So like basically it makes it so that your clipboard layer on your computer can now be automated. So I can make it so like every time I pick up a specific link from a specific website, it opens a specific page on another application, because it knows that anytime I copy that sort of link, I open this application. So it kind of gives you some automation layers that attach to your clipboard.
All right. So let's start really simple here. This is something that I use and I've implemented on a bunch of other people's computers, and also some family relatives who are looking for a little bit of extra productivity in their roles. And it's just the simplest thing. It's the Momentum app. It is essentially a small app that plugs into your browser, and every time you open a new tab or new page on your browser, it, instead of opening what the default may be that might be distracting news articles or all this clickbait, it opens with a beautiful picture of somewhere. It has the date, the time, and your goals for the day right there, and that's it. That's all that's on the page.
Ooh.
It's so simple. It's something I implemented years ago. And as I was thinking things through for this podcast, I actually forgot that it was an app. Like, it's a thing that I put in there that just became part of my native system. So I've used this to help people who get really suckered into like, oh, I get distracted and I click this and I end up on this rabbit hole, because we all do it. This is just a simple little app just to remind yourself and bring yourself back to what your biggest focus is for the day.
Holy crap. I love this.
It's the simplest little thing, and yet it has probably saved me so many hours in productivity that I don't even realize it's there anymore.
So this actually reminds me of 4 Disciplines of Execution, which that book talks about focus being one of the disciplines of execution. And it talks about how 80% of our job is our whirlwind. It's the crap we have to keep track of. But if we let the whirlwind eat our business and our lives, we don't get anything meaningful done. We just maintain. It's squeezing that down to 80% and slotting in 20% of what matters most. Like that's the discipline of focus. This is great. I really, really appreciate. I'm going to go play with that, because what a fantastic place. I mean, how often am I opening a new tab? Hundreds of times a day.
Right.
So every time. So basically, what better way to put in front of me my top priorities than every time I open a tab?
Right. And for me, I'm really big on intentions and mindset. Sometimes I may struggle with focus, and really I think focus is the greatest tool that we have.
Yep.
So being able to have something, even with, it has a little inspirational quote on there as well. It's just a little morsel that feeds that I need to look at something else, do something else, but then it doesn't give you enough to really sidetrack you.
I love it. I feel like that was an app and a hack. You got look at that list of apps. Any other apps that you must share on that list? And if not, let's move to hacks.
So looking at my quick list of apps, actually, I'm going to throw one other one out there. This is actually 2 in 1. So it's 2 separate apps, but they're both extensions that I use. and apps that I have on all of my devices. And that is something so simple as well. It is using 1Password and combo that with the Authenticator app. And that might be super old news to a lot of people, but I work with clients all over the world. And so often they don't know their passwords. They can't get into things. They get you get the extra code and it gets sent to somebody else who's managing their business. And so to have that for your entire team, let's say if you're an entrepreneur and you have a team behind you, everyone having the Authenticator app, everyone having 1Password, just saves you those micro moments on a daily basis for your whole team all the time.
So I'm going to throw out another app for that one that I like that you can use alongside exactly what you've described, because what you've described takes a little bit of extra setup, like to understand exactly how to share the Google Authenticator and like how to get that around. It's totally possible, totally doable. And I think that's great. My co-founder of Cellular Labs, Brandon Checkitts, actually created an app called Shared2FA. And the whole idea of it, shared2fa.com is the website. The whole idea of it is to be able to share two-factor authentication codes securely through Slack or SMS. And so they give you a phone number that you can then give to Amazon or whoever else, and they will text that phone number to whoever you choose to have it texted to. So you can have it texted to like 3 people instead of 1. And you also can have it sent to a Slack channel. So then you do a private Slack channel and you only invite the people who are supposed to get it. It works with Google Authenticator as well. Like they've got an integration to Google Authenticator, so you can use that sort of authentication and pass that information in, and it will give you back the codes. So really powerful tool that you can kind of layer on top of and even have an extra layer of security. So like if you had half the team you don't want to have some and half the team you do, Shared2FA can handle that.
I love it. I already wrote it down. I know we're recording a podcast, but I couldn't pass that up, so I had to write it down.
I write down. We're recording a podcast, and I opened up HelloMomentum.app. So like as soon as we get off this call, I'm going to be going over there and starting that trial because I got to try that sucker out.
Fantastic.
Final thing here. We're going to the bounties. So what, if you consider Buffa brand as a whole, it is a complex system. If you're familiar with the theory of constraints, so think, you remember when we used to like put like the hose in the sandbox and we would dig our tributaries and, like you built a river. Well, a river or a complex system always has one bottleneck. There's always one spot that's reducing the flow through the business. And when you open that bottleneck, the throughput for the whole thing gets bigger. That's no different in a business. What's the current bottleneck inside Buffa brand?
Wow. You just bounced it all the way back to childhood. Now you got me nostalgic and now thinking about my future of building Buffa brand as well. So I would say for us, the single biggest choke point or bottleneck would be honestly our ability to communicate with clients and get information from clients. I think that's probably the single biggest point of emphasis of something that I'm trying to figure out is how to best gain all of the information that we need from our clients in a timely fashion to unlock our ability to then execute for that client and do so in a way that makes it really easy for them to supply it and kind of step out of the way and let us jump into a project. It's something we've gotten better at, but that would be probably the single biggest bottleneck.
And what have you tried so far?
So let's go with our kind of current setup is we use engagement forms that are sitting on, they're basically Google Forms that are on our website. Those go ahead and push into Google Drive, and we use Zapier to push those into our project management in order to create new projects that our team then picks up and pushes into client folders.
And what's your project management system?
Basecamp.
Basecamp. Oh, I love Basecamp. Basecamp has some
Basecamp always gets either I love Basecamp or I hate Basecamp.
Well, that's because some people don't understand Basecamp. Is the ones who hate it, I think they don't understand it.
I am a personal lover of it. It organizes all
it forces you to do things a little differently. And I think the little differently is why people hate it, because they're like, no, I want to do it my own way. And it's like, yeah, but the way they've got it set up is really powerful. So
it's very focus driven. It allows you to do one thing at a time and focus on that thing. And I believe there's a lot of people that want to be able to jump in and out a little bit more. And so that can be something that is a constraint. For me, I'm very high energy, very much can jump all over the place, as I said with the momentum quotes. So it's like, for me, being able to go boom, 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 one, and not get into too many things on my screen at once is actually a very helpful thing as a CEO.
So here's here's the answer to your bounty. I'm going to throw out 3 different apps that I've used before that I think might be able to help with this solution. And I'm also going to talk about some of the limitations of Google Forms that I have seen, which have forced me to go look elsewhere for some of those other things. So I really, really, really love JotForm. It is
Okay.
by far the most versatile form software I've ever seen. It'll even let you collect signatures. Like it has a signature field, so you can be like, now sign that this is the right thing, right? Like by signing below, you agree that the copy you just gave me is final, right? So like you could put your whole contract system in there. It'll collect credit cards as well. Like it's got that basic, like really nitty gritty, versatile functionality. It also will do pre-filling. I found that Google's okay at pre-filling. Like you can get a pre-filled link, and that helps. Another thing that I've seen Google do better recently is handling files and images. Before that was even a problem. Like you had to get an add-on to handle that kind of stuff. Where I see Google fall down, and I'll be curious to see how quickly they can keep up with everybody else. Recently, there have been some really cool form builders, and I have yet to test them, so I can't give you an example of which one to go. But there have been forms that have a conversation with your client instead of a form. So if your client gives an answer around this and it doesn't quite fulfill the answer, it asks them a question again in another way so that they get a full answer. And so there are AI forms now where the form is actually interactive. So like if it doesn't get a good enough answer, it feeds them a new question, and you give the question, but you also give an objective to each question, kind of thing.
That's incredible, because one of the biggest issues we have is clients just saying either NA or see previous answer, or we discussed this on a call. And, so often someone has a call with me or a call with our biz dev team, and so they are then moving to that project side, and our project team needs really finite details. And there's no transition of information.
My third like aha to try to give you is this: consider a chatbot. The reason I would consider a chatbot is because people are more naturally inclined to chat with a chatbot versus a form they see as busy work. So if you give them hey, click this link and my customer service team or my team will be in there. And you can actually, there are chatbots out there now where you have the chatbot that gets the information and it's smart enough to call a user, like call a live person when it gets stuck. And so basically the first interaction with the chatbot is just a bot the whole time. But if the chatbot gets in trouble, it can be like, hold on, I need a human. And you can kind of gather information through that. So you may want to consider the idea of whether or not your forms are seen as busy work. Chatbots or chat windows are often seen as a way to get things done. I chat with a support team. I chat with, so like just a mindset shift in terms of the way you're capturing the information. I said that was third and last. I lied. I got another one. Consider JotForm is really good for this. Consider giving your clients the ability to communicate with you verbally or via video alongside the text options. You may be getting NA because they don't like typing.
Fair. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I hadn't even considered that.
So that's an education piece. You could show them like, hey, check out this really cool text to voice feature on your phone. You can just word vomit into here, right? And you can tell them, don't worry about any punctuation or spelling, just word vomit into here. And here's how you would do that. You can make a little video and you could still get it via your Google Forms. You wouldn't have to change anything, but consider opening up other mediums for people because they could be. And the other thing I would say is, how many of you had conversations with that put NA in there and figured out why they put NA? What about your question could be rephrased or dug into?
Yeah, that's a good one too. And I like the ability of potentially being able to just talk it out, whether it's just audio or a video. The other thing about that is we could always take the transcript of that and then plug that into AI and be like, here's what they're actually saying. Like we're at that point now where we can do that.
Absolutely. So assembly.ai or assembly.com, AssemblyAPI.com, something like that. Assembly is my most favorite transcription API. And that sucker, like bulletproof transcriptions, amazing. You can hook it up to Zapier and have it pull any audio file or video and transcribe it. And it costs pennies for hours of transcription. So
awesome.
Yeah, another one I toss out there. All right. That totally wraps us for this episode. We got way more in than I usually do, which I love. Thanks, Corey, for jumping on.
Thanks for having me.